first. This is Matt, everyone, Matt Kerr. He's the amazing son of Jane, who comes to our 6 a.m. class. She's a beast as well. Ironman and triathlon background, and he's just going to be blessing us with some cool facts about Ironman and how he approaches those types of things. So my first question for you, Matt, welcome, is how long have you competed at Ironman and triathlons now?
Hey, thanks for the welcome, mate, and it's epic to be in here in this facility and hearing about the Warrior program. Come to the chase, actually haven't been competing that long.
Cool.
Professionally for just over 12 months now.
Yep.
But before that I was racing for a hobby and a lifestyle, and found the passion and the drive and actually just wanted to be better and better, and then it led me to transitioning into full-time professional. This is what I do day to day, and this is actually now a job, but it's
Awesome.
Still an epic job.
Yeah.
So just over 5 years really racing.
Wow.
But before that there was really no endurance kind of background as such to this degree. We're talking racing for 8 hours.
Yeah.
It was more a bit of CrossFit. Was I guess the direct competitive sport before this, and then a bit of surf lifesaving and water polo through school.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's hectic. So then, I guess in the last 5 years, semi-professionally or unprofessionally and professionally, how many competitions would you say you've kind of clocked up, maybe just like per year?
Yeah, I mean, when I started I was pretty fresh into it, so I was that was one Ironman a year type thing, for the first year, and it was based on level of fitness and what I had, but now we're looking at racing, probably 3 to 4 Ironman races a year.
Wow.
With a combination of 5 to 6 half Ironman races a year. So you put that into a 12-month period, there's quite a bit of periodization planning, training blocks, and you also want to be better, right? It's training for a race is one thing, but you also want to make improvements beyond that and outside of that. So there's a bit to it. I guess I was teaching full-time at high school before this. I was an outdoor and PE teacher, which suited actually perfectly the career path I've gone down. I got 2-week training block every 10 weeks, which was called the school holidays, and then we get 6 weeks in the summer, 8 weeks in the summer to lay down some really good foundations. So it actually allowed me to transition into a full-time job pretty well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. How many competitions have you won professionally?
One professionally. Just the one last year. End of last year. Got on the top of the podium there, but most of my winning and success has come from I guess when I was racing age group, or what they call amateur, before professional. So I guess greatest accomplishment as an age grouper was taking out the Ironman World Champs in 2021, I think it was, in the States. So that was kind of the pinnacle of what made me transition to professional and really exploited that age group amateur racing.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I think a lot of people probably just think you just train the same all year round. Is there like a off season for you and then an in season kind of schedule? Does it vary?
It does to a degree. We talk about we've got a race coming up. It's you've got to put an element of time into that race. So it could be a 6 to 8 week block before that race, but there's obviously training that falls outside of that period, and what does that look like? Because you want to be better, and you can't really maximise your training to find those gains in that race block, if that makes sense. It's got to be done outside of that. So there's definitely work outside of your race specificity that you're doing. It's a hard one here in New Zealand because our season kind of kicks off from December through till now, March, and then once we're done with that, there's still a bit of racing in Aussie, and then once Aussie dries up, we can go into the States and we can go hard in Europe. That's when the European season kicks, and then you're done with that by October, and by the time you clean that up, it's
time to go
again. It's a hard one to periodise your rest and recovery.
I guess you just have to pick and choose what competitions you dedicate or commit to going really hard at, and maybe you could go, or is there a way that you can do that, where you can ease off for competitions, or is
you're
it
picking
too hard mentally?
I guess you kind of want to choose your goals for the year and where you want to end up, where you want to be racing. But everything's so vulnerable. You could be planning to race and go through an epic 5-6 week block, and just things don't work out on the day, and you don't execute you don't get to demonstrate what you did in training on that race day for various reasons. So then you got to make changes and plans. So it's
no, that's cool. Without going into too much detail, what is your training schedule for a week's training usually consist of? Let's just say you're like in a 6 week block.
It's, to be very broad, it's like, I've got 3 disciplines to focus on there. We're probably looking between 25 and 30 hours a week of that's training. So that's out either swim, bike or run. That could be pool swimming, that could be open water swimming, so in the sea or in open water. On the bike, that's either on the trainer, so static, or out on the road. And running, it's variation of like speed, track, long. But then outside of that, 25 to 30 hours, you've got everything of, right? So the refueling, the mobility, the stuff, the S&C, and just basically recovering to
that's
be able
why
to
it's
back
a
up the next
full-time
day.
job, eh?
100%.
What do you think of when someone talks to you, or when someone mentions mental resilience? Like, what does that kind of mean to you, mental resilience?
Mental resilience is like, I kind of don't see it. It's a thing, right? It's definitely a thing, but it's not being tough in the head to go, I'm tough enough to combat whatever problem comes at me, because you never know what the extent of the barrier that you might face. It's about, I guess, accepting that barrier for what it is, and going, can I overcome it? And how can I, if I can? But if I can't, at that point in time, what options do I have to seek a solution, if that makes sense? So it's not going like, I need to be resilient enough for everything that could be thrown at me, and I'm bulletproof. Because we know that that's not going to happen. We're not all perfect, and the scenario of degrees of what could be presented just is huge.
Would I guess for a lot of people, well, especially for myself, it's mainly self-doubt that ends up creeping in when it gets really hard, so like if I get like on the bike and then the time's running out and I've got like, 15 k's to go, but probably not enough time to get there, that's where I've kind of got that option, I guess. You choose, am I going to try, or so how do you kind of overcome that, or do you ever experience that, and how do you overcome that?
I think like a classic definition is you're only as good as your last race or your last training session, right? If you had a bad training session this morning, for example, that weighs on you. Yesterday's epic sessions were like they're out the window. Or same goes with the race. I think it's definitely there, and that for me personally, I take a lot out of confidence and success within training, within races. If I know I've had a good training block, I try and pull that through into racing, and the self-doubt is I've had some real lows in the sport, but I think for me it's like coming back to the fact of what am I doing, how do I enjoy myself and what I'm doing, but also how can I find it challenging enough that it's not squashing you, because you get squashed, it's like you've got to find a way to stay up and try and seek those solutions that come out. But it's a matter of like, I guess I go, what have I been faced with in the past? And something that was massive in November for me and got me real low in the sport, I look back on it now and go, that was a thing, but I got through that. And just reflecting on how that happened and the things that you've come, or the way that you've navigated that to get to where you are. And you may only be 1 or 2% higher than that low, but that's 1 or 2% you have to hold on to and take, right?
I like that. That actually kind of answers my next 2 questions, but I'll ask them anyway. We'll go with the negative first. So what's one negative standout moment in a competition you remember, and how have you kind of dealt with that?
Definitely had a few. I mean, I guess around the whole, if we're talking psych side of things, which we'll go with that theme. Like last year I just got to a point where nothing was really going right. It had a bunch of different things in races, and I'd ended up like third race in a row, and things just weren't happening. I actually DNF'd. I pulled out. I got halfway through the bike,
I think I remember that.
I remember getting off the bike. It was in Melbourne actually, and Mum had come over to support me, and I remember like you get pretty emotional about this stuff because it's my job, and things are pretty raw. And I remember saying to her like, I'm just not good enough for the sport anymore, and these guys that are out there are better than me. And yeah, it's pretty hard to reflect that. Those words came out of my mouth, and it's so that was a super low point, which I just needed to take a reset. And there was a few things which I did, and I got a really good team around me. So reached out to some of those people, and it was like I'd been overseas for a good period of time. It's about coming home, reconnecting with friends and family, and just dialing things right back, stripping things back. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's really key. I think a lot of people would look at a sport like triathlon or any individual-based sport and just think that you just do it all on your own, you know. And the team is so important, right? Like that support crew. They are not just with you through all the great times, you know. Like you actually need them more when it's like tough.
100%.
That's real cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And then I guess what's the contrast to that is what's a positive moment that you've had in competition that you remember, and how do you use that?
Yeah, I mean, always go like into any race, no matter who you're racing, because I'm now in the professional side of things where I'm racing those people I've always looked up to within the sport.
Yeah.
And I go, actually, I've got nothing to lose racing these guys, but everything to gain and win from it. And like, how cool is it that I now have the physical ability and somewhat ability to compete against these guys? I may not stack up, but give it a go.
You're in the race.
You come out close to them, with them, in front of them. It's all a little bit cloud nine stuff, but it's like cool. You've got nothing. I've actually got nothing to lose, other than going out there and proving myself.
That's epic.
Because if you don't, then it's probably not going to end that well for you.
Yeah. I love that. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger athletic self? So not like your younger self, but when you kind of first came into the sport as like, I don't know, Brussels sprout, what's something that you would say to them now?
I think like there's a starting point, right? And I do say this quite a bit, that there's a starting point, and no matter where that starting point is. And I think this goes for maybe not just my younger self as well, but for the diverse range of abilities out there in anything, gym, sport, professional, lifestyle. It's like there is a starting point, and everyone's got that point. You just got to figure out where it is. And there's always going to be a path to be better than that starting point, and you just got to navigate that path, right? It's got to be progressional. It might just be that you put your shoes on for the first day and you walk to the end of the driveway, come home. The next day you put your shoes on, you walk to the lamppost past the driveway.
Nice.
And by week 3 you're 5k down the road and home. So I guess that kind of deviates a little bit from the younger self, but overall it's kind of where I have found myself, and I go, not that I look at it now and go I didn't have a starting point, but it's just I see that quite a lot.
Questions from the crowd. So I'm just going to ask these as they are. Some of them are kind of repetitive. Good work, guys. But when you hit the mental wall, I assume that's like if you face like some kind of mental issue or struggling with something. What are some processes you go through in your mind to push yourself past that?
Yeah, for sure. I always know that the clock keeps going. It always keeps going, and I know that when things get really hard, and we're not just like physically, when things get hard, it's just a matter of breaking that window down, right? For me, I'm racing 8.5 hours. At the start of the day, your window's pretty big. It's like you might be looking at a 1 hour block. By the end of it, things can get pretty narrow. You might be looking at, we're down to 20-second windows at the back end of a marathon to get you home. I guess chunking things as to where you're at the moment and what can you do. You can't change what has been done. If I come out of the swim and I haven't had a good swim, I can't change that. What I can do now is step over that line, and it works really well with running. that next step that you take, everything you have in front of you, you're in charge of, and you can actively do the best that you can as an individual. I can't change what happened in the last K or the last 2 steps.
Love that.
But as soon as I cross that line, it's like, what am I doing? What can I do to be the best me?
What is your marathon time looking like?
Off the bike, I think it's about a 1:55, which is not amazing, you know. But I know I'm in the realms of like training.
Yeah.
I can train. In training, I'm in the high 140s.
Nice.
So that's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
But yeah, off 180 on the bike, it's, I think at the moment, if we look at paper, it's 154, 155. So
Yeah, right.
sorry, 254.
254.
254.
Yeah. Nice. Everything hurts. What do you tell yourself to push through those moments? How do you... Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's just one question on its own.
Yeah. Everything hurts.
Yeah, this is from Adi. This question's from Adi. So when she's in pain, like how do you... when you're in pain.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's like... because it's really easy to take that pain that you're feeling in anywhere, in your lungs and your legs, and go... And that start to just encompass your whole body, and that includes your mind, which is the most important thing. So when everything hurts, which quite often it does, it's acknowledging those thoughts, accepting that they are there. It's data. Yeah, acknowledge that my legs are sore, my lungs are working, you know, but that cannot be a thing that you are overwhelmed by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just acknowledging the data.
Yeah.
Okay, the legs are sore. Carry on.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really easy said than done.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you got to practice it, right?
Practice. Right.
Yeah. So it's just because the legs always hurt.
Yeah.
And a lot of things are uncomfortable, but it's just data coming in and practicing that data coming in. And different things are going to hurt on different days, and not letting that be the forefront of what's at your mind.
Yeah.
More so just trying to, I don't say, try and find that flow state, but it's a matter of, just autonomously doing, I guess, what you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I just find that happens to me heaps, and I think for me that's probably one of the things that I get stuck in is if everything starts hurting too much, it can almost be a deterrent to my original goal.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, how do I like what do I do? But sometimes for me I just get a little bit angry and then that just kind of pushes me through. Just use what you can.
Might not work for me, and it's different things, right?
But I haven't sat on a bike for 3 hours before, so maybe I'll try that. What does your week look like the week of competition? Training and diet and things.
Good question. Typically it's like you've worked for, let's say, 6 weeks into a race, and race week is always less volume.
Yep.
I'm still trying to get intensity. I'm still trying to hit those systems, still trying to keep them stimulated.
Yep.
But we're trying to stimulate those without creating fatigue. Because the moment we go into a state of where the body needs to repair or create fatigue, we don't want that race week. And quite often those sessions during race week are never good numbers, because you've accumulated 6 weeks worth of volume. And you're intentionally taking your 10 to 2 weeks of taper, and in that taper time, the body is trying to repair itself from all of that volume that you've done. So, the week of is definitely still using all of those energy systems, swim, bike, and run. But it's more so a mental stimulus to not have you sitting on the couch the whole week and go, I'm really recovering. Because the systems do need to be used, right? They need to be stimulated.
So more just like kind of keeping everything more maintenance or just below maintenance?
Yeah, totally. And I guess it's just looking at what you've got in front of you and going, would that create the need for repair the body? And it differs per person, but typically I'd have a bit of intensity on a Monday if I'm racing Saturday, a Monday and a Tuesday, bike and run. Swim's pretty good because it's not really there's not too much impact going on. I'd usually take a Thursday off completely, so complete rest day. And then on Friday I'd run through a swim, bike and run up to a 10-minute swim, 40-minute bike and 20-minute run in the afternoon. And that 20-minute run in the afternoon on a Friday before a race is more just embracing what's going to come the next day, thinking about what's happening the next day, and there's no fitness gains to be made.
Captain's run.
Yeah, but we're not losing fitness, right?
Yeah. Nice. That's really cool. I like that, kind of like an active taper week, because I think, well, it also depends on your sport, because like with the climbers, we just have pretty much nothing. They do nothing,
Right.
But you get what's called overshoot phenomenon, where the high rest in the muscles gets the fast twitch fibers more active. By the time you get on the wall, you're just flying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty interesting.
Interesting, eh?
Do you apply your mental strength tools and methods to your everyday life?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the sport. Like, I think I've grown so much as Matt Kerr outside of Matt Kerr, the professional triathlete. Like, I'm a human first, right? And then I'm an athlete. And a lot of the qualities that I'm learning in the sport directly correlate to day-to-day stuff. And that goes from, organisation throughout the day. I like to think I've got high expectations of myself and achieving. And I think there's a direct correlation there between the two. But absolutely, like a bit of that, I guess we'll use the word resilience, is totally a thing. And using that toolbox in a day-to-day setting is definitely it.
Cool. Do you set many goals throughout an event to give you mental clarity? I guess you already talked about chunking, right? How does that look?
Yeah, I mean, going into a race, I always have like a hierarchy of goals, right? Of what I want to achieve.
Yes.
And the first one is always number one, no matter what race, is always to finish.
Yeah, right.
If something inhibits that, then obviously I can't, mechanical or an injury or something. But where possible, like I want to get to the finish line, and that's...
Seems so simple.
Goal zero is actually getting to the start line.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Nice. I like that.
Sick-free, injury-free, all of that stuff. And quite often that doesn't all play out. But and then from that, it's like, let's say 2 to 6 goals falls within specificity of what I want to achieve in that race. So,
cool.
And so going back to the question, it's like, I've got goals within that, and that stem from what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's all fine and well to go, I want to race an 8-hour Ironman, but how are you going to do that?
Are they the goals you set for those 8-hour Ironmans? Do they come up from your training itself, or is it a mixture of the things you've done in training, the previous competitions for you, so that you're like, I really need to focus on this time, or how do you choose those types of goals?
Yeah, I mean, it's specific to each discipline, right? I know what I'm capable of. Yeah. So it's setting an expectation of capability from my own performance. Yeah. And that comes from what I do in training and how training's tracked. Yes, but then it's also going, where have I been and where do I want to go? And it's pretty stagnant to just go along the same plateau, right? And I want to keep progressing. But again, we're talking about getting out there and racing, and a lot of those variables do change. When we're racing others on the road, and there's tactics and dynamics that are going on which you have to adapt to, and just knowing some of your limitations in those goals is pretty important too.
That's a whole nother side, because you think about finishing the race, got to hit these times, all of that, but then there's the external components and variables that you can't control, like how good that guy is, or what he does during the race. Have there ever been times in the race where people have done things that have kind of thrown you, or are there like little skiffs in that during your swim?
It's massive, and that's really the one variable that I've found racing amateur to professional. You get out there racing as an amateur, it's like you just go out and do what you need to do. You race your numbers, I ride my power, and you don't really take account of who's around you and what they're doing. Whereas now it's like, it's all in the mix. And if old mate goes on the bike, you've got to make a decision. What am I spending from the bank to go with him, and how's it going to pay later? Or is he just burning his matches, and I'll see him later on in the race actually. You know, so.
Oh, what a mindset,
Yeah, and if he does go, then what does that do to your head? So staying content that actually trusting what I can deliver on the day is enough to get the result I want. Rather than going, well, I come out of the swim probably not where I want to, and letting that play with the rest of your day. So.
Oh man, I like that. Okay, one more question from the crowd. How do you maintain momentum after an event is done? Do you get like post-event blues? Like, because I guess it's kind of, you've kind of answered this because you have so many events throughout the year. But do you ever have times where you've like just done an event and then you're kind of like, oh, now what? Or
yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Yep.
I guess I raced like 10 days ago.
Yeah.
So pretty relevant topic right now.
Yeah.
But tradition, and what I see, like I coach a few athletes as well, they come the day, 1 to 5 out of a race, there's a lot of reflection going on what they did and what they didn't do. And it's going, I want to get into it, I want to go again because I want to execute what I didn't execute potentially. So the motivation at that period is pretty high to go and race again. But you've just gone through, like, we're not adding fitness by racing that race. Like, we've done some pretty big damage to the body. So, typically at the moment I'm on 2 weeks of just easy training and mainly like active recovery. This week's a little bit more than last week. Then going, where do I race next? And what do I do? Because I'm not racing. Recovery's got to work. Got to go right. In order to go and race again in 5 weeks, which is probably like, again, 4 or 5 weeks is the minimum time. But I think when, let's take November for example, last year I pushed real hard. I pushed real hard for the sport. I was racing quite a bit. I wasn't getting the results, and that was when a little bit of that enjoyment came out of it, and like you said, the blues. Or maybe not the passion was there. I needed to find the enjoyment back in the sport. So I've definitely went through that for sure. But just ensuring it's like fresh and enjoyable, and you're doing it because you love it and you want to get better. Don't get me wrong, there's always days that you don't want to get out the door. But holistically speaking,
No, that's cool. How long is like a normal Ironman for you at the moment? Like, what's your average kind of that's just sitting around?
So like we race, as I say, 10 days ago in Taupo. Conditions were pretty bad. It does depend on conditions. I went 8:30. I've gone like 8:20, just under 8:20 there before, but it was a super windy day. So conditions totally weren't favourable. And you get a headwind on the bike, you'll knock across 180k. You'll knock like 3 or 4 k's an hour off. So it substantially puts you back. Whereas half Ironman is obviously the intensity is a lot more, but we're talking like 3.5 to 4 hours. But that's on. Like you're just you're broken from the higher intensity as opposed to the long duration that you're out there for. Not to say you're not pushing during that time, but it's
that's so long.
It's a long day. I mean, but the faster you go, the quicker you're home, mate. Like actually, it is a thing. That definitely is a thing.
That's me, bro.
So.
Well, that's all our questions. Thanks so much for coming on and providing these guys with a bit of insight into the mental side. I think they'll take a lot away from this. I know I definitely will as well. I think a lot of people look at things as a whole a lot of the time, but it's cool to kind of hear you come on and just speak about how you break things down a lot. And like, it's a pretty normal dude. Everyone kind of looks at people who do that type of sport as just this kind of mental freak, that's just above the rest. But it's cool to see that, you're just all there mentally. You're not just one of those weirdos, and like you just have a bit better of a plan on when it comes down to the game day. But thanks heaps for doing that. Really enjoyed it.